Greetings and salutations, everyone. Today is the 4th of August, 2024, and I am Thaddeus Satori. This is the third and final podcast of my experience with Merkel Cell Carcinoma. I want to make it very clear that I am not medically trained in any way. I'm not giving advice. I am simply sharing my own thoughts and experience with cancer. In part one, I shared with you how I learned that I had Merkel Cell Carcinoma and the treatment plan that was prescribed by the oncologist in the U.S. In part two, I highlighted some of the treatments I received at Verita Life Clinic in Bangkok, a more holistic approach to cancer treatment. And in this part three, I would like to share with you my experience with the follow-up monitoring that occurred after I returned to the U.S. in November 2017. So after returning from Bangkok for the next 2 years, I alternated between a PET-CT and an MRI on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, I went in for an alternate exam. For those of you who are not familiar with these scans, I'll tell you a little bit about what they do. First, you have to fast for 12 hours prior to your appointment. This is to ensure that the cancer cells are good and hungry. Next, you go in for your appointment, and they seat you in a comfortable chair, and they inject you with radioactive glucose, or radioactive sugar, and you sit in this chair for 1 hour while that concoction circulates throughout your body. They then put you into the machine, and if there is a cluster of radiation, the machine lets them know exactly where that is in your body. Now, this is where the connecting dots comes in. It seems to me that either consciously or subconsciously, oncologists in the U.S. are aware that cancer cells get dibs, that is, they eat first, with carbohydrates. I have concluded that they must understand this at some level, because if the radioactive sugar were evenly distributed throughout your cells and not concentrated in a cancer cluster, the tests themselves would be completely useless. I don't know if things have changed over the past 7 years, but in 2017 I was at a birthday party for my great niece. My nephew's mother-in-law was in the midst of receiving radiation treatment for breast cancer. She had a sore where the radiation came out on her side. She was in pretty bad shape from the radiation. And she joined me at the table with a plate full of ice cream and cake. And I thought to myself, what? So I asked her, did your oncologist give you any advice on diet? And she said, no, I never really mentioned it. I thought, whoa. And in my mind, at least, this was a complete disconnect with reality. I felt like oncologists in the U.S. should be warning their patients about the dangers of carbohydrates. This was not the case, even though they were clearly aware that cancer eats first. So every 3 months, I alternated between an MRI and a PET-CT. After the results were ready, I had an appointment with an oncologist to go over the results, and this is the second thing that really quite shocked me. For 2 years, I went in to speak with the oncologist, and he never raised any questions about what sorts of treatments I received while at Verita Life Clinic in Bangkok. I thought this was rather odd, given that he was an oncologist and that was his profession, and I had an incurable form of cancer, very deadly, and after 2 years, I showed no signs of the cancer in spite of my bad habits. There are certainly many factors involved in this seeming lack of curiosity, but a large part of it I would attribute to our programming. Years ago, I came across a teacher called Anthony DeMello, and he spoke of how we are all programmed by our parents and family and language and society and culture and religion and education system. Furthering this idea is my more than 20 years of experience as a teacher in 4 different countries, and in each country what was called to mind was a Japanese expression which states, "The nail which stands up shall be pounded down." Conformity seemed to be more important than free thinking or creative thinking outside the box. So imagine if you were studying to become a doctor, just the fact that you'd spent a quarter of a century in this system would have beaten the curiosity out of you. And added to that is the fact that if you disagreed with any of your professors, you would never become a doctor. So I think this programming plays a large role in how we filter the world through our lenses. So that pretty much sums up my experience with Merkel Cell Carcinoma. If you have any questions, you can comment or you can email me at connectingdotswts@gmail.com. I'll see what I can do to answer. I hope I helped somebody out there. Take good care, and that's all for now. Cheers.